Welcome back, City Builders. Kodiak the Kodiak here. In today's City Skylines 2 weekly recap, we go over Colossal Order's Word of the Week number 7, the last one for the year. We also go over the last patch of the year, which contains some considerable performance increases. In this patch, they also added 2 maps that we'll go over, as well as keep you guys updated on all of the new mods that are available on Thunderstore. Now, before we get started, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you can keep up to date on all the City Skylines 2 news, tips, and tricks. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now there is a lot to cover this week, so we're just going to dive right in because, again, there's the Word of the Week, we got the new patch, and a ton of other really cool stuff that comes with that, as well as the new mods. So let's dive on in here. Now, just a reminder again that Colossal Order's Words of the Week are written by Colossal Order's CEO, and I go through beforehand and highlight all of the relevant information, and a lot of this early stuff has been kind of repeated as it was talking about what the patch was, and because this came out before the patch, there's just no reason to repeat it, so let's just dive on in, and we're just reading the highlighted portions. Also a reminder, this was written and posted on Monday, December 11th. Next week, we'll start our holiday, and we will be away for a few weeks. Before the holiday, there's still time for the last patch, which we obviously will talk about later. We hear your feedback, and we hope these improvements make the budget more transparent and easier to determine what new services your city can afford. The patch also includes a little holiday gift in the form of 2 new maps that were the result of internal testing of the map editor. Down below here, they say, here's the brief I gave the designers for the new maps based on some of the feedback that we've gotten. So the first map here, Land of the Eternal Sun. As the name suggests, this area basks in the glory of the eternal sun. With literally no rain and steady warm temperatures, this is an ideal choice for those looking to build a minimal input from the seasons. The other map was called Flatland. Hills, slopes, mountains, no thanks, I'd rather stay leveled. No need for contour lines on this land. To the CEO's great disappointment, the designers changed both the names and the descriptions of the maps to better fit the existing style of the game. So Sunshine Peninsula and Corral Riches are the names of the new maps when you start a new game. Let Colossal Order know what you think about them. And then, as promised, let's go over what our plans are for City Skylines 2 in 2024. First off, modding. Bringing modding support to the game is a high priority. This includes the map editor, code modding support, and the asset editor. The asset editor is the part that is the most behind schedule, but we will continue to work on it into January. They've said this multiple times that code modding, official support, and the map editor will come before the asset editor is ready, so this is not a surprise. We'll be releasing development diaries related to modding and run an early access program for modders to try the tools before release. Now, based on the wording here, I would like to speculate that they do say that the asset editor is the most behind schedule, but they will continue to work on it in January. This to me alludes that potentially code mod support or the map editor might actually be ready sometime in January then. Again, pure speculation, but based on the wording here, that could be the case. Consoles. The console version of the game were delayed, and we're working hard to get performance and the stability up to par, so we can bring the games to PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. Something I've said on the channel a lot is that the PC version of the game will get significant performance increases like we did in this last patch, so if you were having trouble with performance, stay tuned for the patch notes because you will get some performance increases, especially in high-dense areas. But the PC version needs to get performance increases in order for it to hit stable targets that will equate to the performance targets that they have for console. So we should see all of those before it comes out for console as well, so PC users should be excited about this as well. The console versions will also have modding tools, minus the code modding, present on release, so the players on console will be able to create maps and add custom assets. This is something that's super awesome, and I'm really excited for all the console players out there to be able to have access to these great tools and features in the game. But again, pay attention to the wording here and that those will be available on release for console, which means that these features will need to be complete before it will come out for console. The expansion pass. The DLC production is currently on hold and waiting for a higher priority work to be completed, but progress has been made on the first asset pack, content creator packs, and radio stations. Content creator packs are of course created by some of our favorite content creators in the community, and the content for the radio is produced by Paradox. I think it's a good sign that they're not prioritizing the paid DLC aspects and they're actually working on fixing the core game itself before adding them. It feels less like a cash grab, especially with the rocky launch that they've kind of had so far. Performance and bug fixing. We will continue to improve the quality of the game based on our internal findings and your bug reports and crash logs. To be honest, this is the work that we will continue through the lifetime of the game, as I believe there's always something we can improve upon, but the biggest remaining offenders should be sorted out during the spring. It's a pretty long timetable to have those fixed, but with all the other stuff that they're having to work on, it's not surprising that that's the timetable, especially with how small of a team Colossal Order actually is. Your suggestions and feedback. We'll be sharing your suggestions and feedback on board regarding new content features and quality of life improvements that are not classified as bugs. Your feedback matters, and we'll be drawing inspiration from it for the lifetime of the project, just like we did for City Skylines. So let's keep the discussion going, which you guys can do over on the City Skylines 2 Discord, which I will leave a link to down in the description, as well as everything else that we talk about today, including this word of the week, the patch notes, as well as Thunderstore. That is the current list of priorities we have in 2024. We hope to bring you features and missing platforms as soon as possible, and we'll announce timelines as we get closer to each release. So keep an eye on the Colossal Order Word of the Week in the new year for the latest news, or you can check that out here by turning on notifications and dropping a description down below where we go over them every week, so you don't have to keep your eyes peeled for them. Next week, there'll be something to round up the year, but this little blog is taking a break until January 15th. So we'll have no more words of the week over here on the channel until January 15th. I'm not sure how slow the mod workshop's going to be or any other updates about the game. I doubt we'll see much of anything until the middle of January around here. So we'll see how these weekly recaps will go. If there's really not a lot of news, or there's only one mod, I might not even make a weekly recap on some weeks leading up to January 15th, so for the next month, but we will have other videos on the channel that will take their place and be uploaded on Sunday if I don't have one of these. Anywho, let's move on to the patch that also dropped this week on Thursday. Okay, so here we are at the patch, and the first thing I only have a few things highlighted on the actual patch, as we will go over the patch notes in a minute. We expect that you'll see the biggest improvements when looking at areas with a lot of pedestrians. Yes, they now have LOD models. So for those of you who don't know, previously the Sims, or the characters that were actually walking around your city, as you zoomed in and out, we're not changing the scale of how they were rendering. So when you were zoomed in and you could look at all the detail, and when you zoomed out, usually video games will use level of detail models to actually reduce the load on your computer by not rendering in the character fully. However, City Skylines 2 was rendering in the characters fully. Now, if you've been around my channel a bunch, you know I always talk about going into dev mode and turning the skin off for the characters, which you can figure out how I was doing that in my dev mode video, which I will put up in the annotations right now and as well as down in the description. But you no longer have to do that anymore, because this patch actually fixed that. So now you get about roughly 10 FPS of that turning the skin off increase all the time, no matter where you're at in the game. And also, I've noticed that this patch has improved the stability of my game as well. It's not as stuttery, it doesn't feel as laggy anymore. It feels like it's running a lot smoother, which is great. And they have talked about that they have a lot more to go in terms of performance, so I can only imagine that this game's performance is going to increase pretty significantly before the console version comes out. They do say here if you run into any new issues, they can be reported here, which again, the patch notes will be linked down in the description. You can click on that here link and report any bugs. So the first thing here in the patch notes is the winter treat, so 2 new maps, the Sunshine Peninsula and the Corral Riches, and we'll go over those in a little while. I think they're really great beginner maps. They're not really necessarily something I would consider for a more detailed builder, or somebody's looking to add a lot of variety to their builds necessarily. Maybe Sunshine Peninsula, but we'll go through them a little bit later. Corral Riches is a very flat, expansive map. If you are looking to build an incredibly large, sprawling city, Corral Riches will be the perfect map for you. I think the game needed 2 maps kind of like this that are a bit more beginner or built to scale really exponentially. So I'm glad that they've added them. So let's go through all the patch notes. If you don't care too much about the patch notes, you can always go down below. I have my videos chaptered out, and you can skip to the next section where we talk about the maps. In performance, we've added LOD for characters and selected assets, optimized geometry layouts for all assets, decreased virtual texturing pressure with assets that don't use emissive maps, disabled VSync for default settings. Thank you. If you are playing City Skylines 2 right now with VSync and you're not getting something called screen tearing, and you will notice it and you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. That's what screen tearing is. If you're not getting that, please turn off VSync. It will significantly improve your performance. VSync usually causes a pretty significant performance hit in most games, and disabling it here will do that as well. So please make sure that you have VSync turned off. I'm glad this is a default setting now. One of the biggest gripes I had with the game at launch was not necessarily that the performance was god-awful, but more that the default settings made people think that they were a lot worse than it was. Disabled volumetric lighting calculations where it was mostly invisible. On to the gameplay changes. Improved lane changing behavior for vehicles. I haven't seen much of an improvement from this. They're still changing lanes right next to my intersection constantly. Like, they'll do the thing where they split in between two lanes because they're like, oh, the AI is now coded to actually like split between lanes if they can, but then decide at the last minute every single person in the left lane needs to merge into the other lane. Like, oh gosh, it's so frustrating, but that has not been fixed. But this is some other kind of lane changing behavior, so that's good. Fixed traffic accidents that last forever and improved resolution of the accidents, which is pretty interesting. Improved cargo air transport by increasing plane cargo capacity from 50 tons to 100 tons, so each plane carries double amount of capacity now. Increasing the airport cargo terminal capacity from 100 tons to 720 tons. That's massive. I'm not sure what that is in comparison to maybe like the rail yards and stuff like that, but like from going from 100 to 720 is obviously a huge improvement for the airports. Adding all resource types to airplane outside connections. Not allowing cargo terminals to store garbage resource. That's so interesting to me that they were actually storing the garbage resource at the storage terminals. That's so weird, but okay, that's no longer an issue now. Storage fixes. Improved storage buildings to consider both current storage and future storage to include cargo that's already on its way to the building. Fixed cargo terminals import garbage. Fixed companies can buy and import resources from commercial companies. Fixed export that can happen when outside resource amount is below 0. Fixed resource amount might become negative when transporting vehicles load a large amount of resource. Negative amount reset to 0 in existing save files. So that one just should be automatically reset for you. Fixed airport can import goods from road outside connection when there's no air cargo route. I find that really interesting. So it's just basically like a big storage terminal. And then there's economy fixes and improvements. Replaced money buffering system when a new system that directly deducts the money. City income should be more predictable now. Fixed income awarded twice. Fixed unknown profit during storage transfer. Fixed pedestrian navigation issues with the train station subway upgrade. I'm going to be honest with you, I think I forgot that the train stations just have a built-in subway upgrade. This will require the building to be rebuilt to take effect though, so if you're having an issue like that, you need to rebuild your train station. Fix pedestrians walking through the air between elevated, lowered, and raised tunnel networks and buildings, because as we know, the citizens will just like walk across like grass fields if they really want to make the hop connection between walking paths. So that fixed an issue now where if there's an elevation, it shouldn't do that. Option search text can overlap when delete a symbol. Sometimes pathfinding for resources does not include cargo loading locations. Saving and rebooting the game gives extra XP based on the number of residential buildings in the city. So if you've ever like booted up your game since the previous patch and you've noticed, hey, my city had an upgrade, it's not because you saved your game right as your city was about to upgrade. It was just giving you free XP on your saves. I'm really glad that that's one as actually fixed, because I feel like I have a lot of stuff in my current build that I'm building over on Twitch, which you can, pop on over and say, hi, I'm live most days of the week now, starting at noon Eastern time. But I've noticed that pretty much every single time I've booted up my city in the past like 2 weeks. So I'm glad that that one's been fixed. 4 seasons spiderwebbing achievement cannot be earned. So that's been fixed, so you can now. Fix pressing M while in photo mode removes the UI permanently for that session, which is not good. Adding missing localization for photo mode and options menu. And then there were some graphics updates. They now have line colors added to passenger ships, cargo ships, and cargo train engines. Improved quality of character model variations. Fixed visual glitches with the metallic and smoothness maps on characters' clothes. Fixed light props and on the Grand Bridge floating in the air after connected to a road. Improved lights on forest machinery. Improved propping for several buildings. Fixed spawn points for cargo trucks not inside the warehouse as expected. Fixed international airport roads are not inverted with left-hand traffic. And fixed crosswalk looks broken when pedestrian path bridge is connected to ground pedestrian path through a road. So a lot of big changes, and obviously the maps for me are kind of the biggest change for the game, as well as the LOD for characters, significantly improving performance for me personally, as well as a lot of other creators. Everyone I've kind of talked to has said that the game feels smoother and that they've noticed the performance increase. It feels good now. Now that we've gone over the patch notes, let's head over and explore the 2 new maps. Okay, so here we are in the map menu. Obviously, I have a bunch of modded maps that are kind of in here that I'm kind of exploring. I didn't get to the mod video this week. We're hoping to get there next week, so let's cross our fingers that I have the time for that. But right now, we are here to cover over the new vanilla maps. So the first one I'm going to go over is Corral Riches. Right here, a vast coastline expanse and filled to the brim with natural resources. The center is dominated by a large lake, accompanied by sizable islands suitable for building. Multiple outside connections provide additional opportunities for resource production and transportation of goods. So North American theme gets right above freezing, but should never dip below freezing, so you shouldn't really see any snow on this map. It gets up to 93 degrees. This is a pretty warm map, thus probably the Corral Riches name. It's in the Northern Hemisphere. The buildable area is about 76%, which is pretty high. I think it's probably the highest of any of the maps that I have, at least. A lot of the custom maps don't have that information, but as far as I understand it, I think it should probably be the highest buildable area of all the maps in the game now. It has every single outside connection, and it has a pretty decent amount of all of the resources. So let's dive on in. Again, I really think that this map is going to be like, not necessarily like the beginner map, like if you play on it you're just like a beginner, but I think it will be a really good map for beginners because you don't have to pay attention to the terrain heights too much, and we'll see that right now. So as we zoom out right now, if I go in here and we look at the natural resource map, first off, lots of natural resources. They're speckled everywhere. There's really no rhyme or reason to any of it. It's just kind of speckled around. If you want to paint those resources yourself and kind of create your own things on this map, you can obviously do that using dev mode, which I've talked about quite a bit in my dev mode and modding video. I believe I actually talked about it in my modding video, but in order to enable dev mode, you will have to go to my dev mode video. So both of them will be up in the annotations. You can click on those. Anywho, let's go over to the terrain height, because that is kind of the more important part of this map to me personally when I first looked at it, because this map is flat. I mean, it has some elevation changes, but this is kind of like the edge of the map right here. And it would be really easy to flatten pretty much all the terrain, or you can just leave it natural. I don't think that the elevation changes on this map are too severe that you couldn't just build over any of them, and it would give your city a more natural rolling feel. Obviously, a lot of us like to flatten everything before we build it because of how the game renders in structures and buildings, then in the ground texture and things like that. But honestly, I think this map is smooth and flat enough that you could just kind of ignore terrain heights if you really wanted to, which is really cool, and I think something that's really good for first-time players who are just kind of learning the ropes. Again, I really think that the game needed a map just like this. Now, aside from the terrain heights, which we can obviously see here, there is an actual 2-lane highway that comes into the map. You do not have access directly to this outer one until you buy out to it, which is obviously very easy, as we all know, and it dumps out into just a straight access road. Again, still very blown away by how flat this map is. I know a lot of content creators like City Planner Plays, for example, were really upset by how aggressive all of the terrain changes were on a lot of the vanilla maps. So I hope that they keep this trend in the future, that the rolling terrain isn't going to be as forceful or as aggressive. Obviously, I'd love some character in the maps, don't get me wrong, but I really appreciate how much smoother this map is, and it feels a little bit more conducive to building, right? Because even the flat areas on some of the other maps are just really aggressive and small. So this is a really great map. We have this lake here in the middle and a lake inside of an island inside of a lake. And there's also this train connection out on this side, or I guess the corner opposite of the water up over here that also has this nice extra section of stockyard, I guess. And that kind of can come through on this interchange. There is also a power connection as well for anyone looking to not produce their own power. And if we go over here and look at the wind map, which should be around here, you'll notice that there is quite a bit of wind on this map as well. It looks pretty strong, so you should be able to build a lot of maybe even wind power on this map because it is so flat. The last thing I want to look at is the water resource deposits, and there is quite a bit of that as well. So if you're looking to do geothermal power, or I guess pump the water, there is quite a bit of water on this map, so you won't necessarily need to do that. But if you want to do a water pumping station instead, you could also do that. We also have this little lake over here that you can build around. Okay, now that we're done looking at this map, we can go back and start a new game, and let's try Sunshine Peninsula. A peninsula comprising a plateau and some islands, basking in the eternal sunshine and the warm sea breeze. The terrain provides a lot of easy buildable space to found a thriving city. With literally no rain and a steady warm temperature throughout the year, this is an ideal choice for those loving the sun. This map is the European theme. It only gets to about 52 degrees Fahrenheit at its coldest, which is about 11 degrees Celsius. So this is a pretty warm map. It is in the Northern Hemisphere and it has 60% buildable area, which is on par with some of the larger, more buildable area maps that are already included in the game. So this is also a really good map to build a large, expansive city on. Much like the previous map, it does have every single outside connection as well as a plentiful amount of resources. So here we are in the new map, and I did boot this one up with mods because there's some interesting things about this map that I wanted to show you guys. Now, first off, we'll look at the terrain heights of this map, and again, this map is really flat. It looks like there is a slight ridge here where the road is, and then it kind of slopes down to the coastline. You can obviously flatten this entire area if you want, or raise it all up, or kind of do whatever you want with it. It's another blank slate. This map sparked a little bit of criticism just because it is kind of like another boring flat map compared to the other one. But again, I really think that the game needed two maps kind of like this to kind of exist in the game for newer players who aren't really like as experienced with terraforming or really wanting to deal with it. On this side of the map here, we do have this nice little island area that you can totally build on. It does have this nice hill formation with this nice little cutaway. And something you'll notice about a lot of the hills on this map as we go over to the actual plateau of the map is that it does look like it's painted in these nice layers. It almost looks like a flaky cake or pastry of some kind. Since I booted it up with mods, you can't tell, but the starting tile for this map is in fact right here. I think if we look, yeah, it's these 9 tiles right here. Sorry, I booted up with mods, didn't think about that, but it is these 3 tiles right here to start with. Obviously, you can expand out to wherever you want pretty rapidly, but that's the ones you will start on. It does have a power outside connection as well, and it enters in the same way. I really like that they're not adding in those weird like pre-made starter spots on the new maps now, which is nice. I think they probably listened to our feedback about that as well. But this flat area up top is also a nice area to build on if you wanted to. I don't know. I look at this map and I'm like, man, I don't really want to touch the plateau. Like I almost like want to leave it pristine and then maybe do some other stuff around in other places. And as you notice, we have some other islands out over here and another flat area. As you can tell, these are all very flat and ready to be built on. We also have an island up over here that is also pretty flat as well. You can see the environment around this map as well has some more plateaus and mountains out over here, as well as some more scattered islands, archipelago of some kind, like out over here past where we're currently building at. If we go into natural resources, you can see that this map has a lot more of a strategically placed resource allotment where these slopes do kind of have most of the fertile land. Some of the islands do as well, and a lot of the ore is surrounding the plateau. So if you'd like to rip this plateau apart for your resources, you can do that. There's also some oil tucked away in some spots as well. It is really resource rich, which is a good thing. But remember, wind on this map is really aggressive towards the edges, but otherwise it is pretty shallow on the low side, whereas if you go up to the plateau, it obviously increases pretty significantly. So if you're looking to do any kind of wind stuff or pay attention to how your factories will blow pollution, it does seem like the north side, or I guess this is what I'm dubbing the north side at least, this area over here would probably be the best place for you to do all of your industry, is down over here and up over here. So that way you don't get air pollution blowing into your residential areas. We can also look at the water pollution, or I guess just the regular water map, so we can see what the groundwater deposits look like, and there is really not a lot of it. Now, granted, there is a lot of the water deposit pockets, but because this map doesn't get any rain, these won't really refill frequently, if at all. I don't really actually know how that system works fully to a T, if they'll even refill if this map doesn't get rain. But we do have some water deposits. It's not like this river doesn't exist, so we can still pull water from places that will feel a little bit more realistic. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Will you be starting a city on these maps? I really like that flat map for building something really expansive, but I also really like the concept of this map. I do think it's a little flat though, and a little lackluster of character, but I really like the flat map, and I might start building something on that as well. Okay, so the reason I wanted to show you guys this map with mods turned on is that this map, I feel like, just based on the climate and not getting any rain, would actually be a perfect map to do more of a desert theme. And one of the mods that currently exist is called, we have to actually press play in order for that to work, is Map Texture Replacer, which is basically like a theme mixer. So we can select it and load some texture packs. Now, desert... I do a small little edit there because I was recording on game capture and you guys couldn't see this, but right here you can see all the texture packs that I currently have. So it does come with just the base desert map theme. These other ones, Bad Peanut was actually trying to like make different versions of the thing, and I was testing them and it was quite silly. But you guys can actually make your own versions of these textures and import them in here. You can take them from City Skylines 1, and as long as they work like the old files, if you actually go to see Game World's actual Thunderstore profile for this mod, you'll actually be able to see how to make them yourself. But we could load up the desert theme here, and I actually really like how this map looks with the desert theme. Now, obviously, we don't have any desert related trees, so if I were to do a desert theme map, I'd probably want to get rid of all this stuff, and it just doesn't really feel like we have a lot of buildings or really much of anything to go well with the desert theme, which is really unfortunate because I think this map would be really sick. It doesn't get a lot of rain. It's really warm. It does have like pretty significant resources around it, so it could be self-sustainable as like a really interesting dry resource rich region that doesn't do well for farming or something like that. Like you could theme this so well. So I just wanted to throw that one out there, and that's the reason why I wanted to boot up this map with mods. And speaking of mods, let's move into Thunderstore's mod updates. So here we are back in Thunderstore, and some important things to point out is that right as I uploaded last week's video, Speed Limit by Swift Cobra mod came out, so you can actually manually set your speed limits for roads. I know there was like a bug where if you made certain changes to the road, it would reset the speed limit, so just keep that in mind, but I don't know if that's been fixed. I haven't taken the time to check. I haven't had a lot of time to play lately, but you know, there is this. So if you're looking to control the speed in your city, this is the mod to do it. It does use Hook UI, so it will use the little symbol in the top left-hand corner of your game. There has been a ton of radio packs that were created by CityRat. CityRat has been going crazy as a DJ, making tons of different radio packs. These are really cool. They're from all different eras. So the 2010 throwbacks have like CeeLo Green. The 90s throwback radio has like Madonna in it. It is super cool. And if you're looking for built-in radio stuff so you can still hear the DJs, but also have in-game music, these might be really great. I really hope that Phil, City Planner Plays, uploads a lot of his music into some radio packs for the game as well, because he has some really nice music. You're listening to it right now in the background of my videos. I use pretty much exclusively master plan music at this point. Also, big shout out to City Planner Plays, who rated me on my Twitch stream, which you guys could come hang out too, because I stream on Twitch. You guys should do that. Anyways, let's go back to the mods. So we have two new maps here. We have Flatonia, made by Maju Mods, which is apparently a flat map with lots of resources. It is with it's compatible with the new version of the game, as well as Wanaka, New Zealand, which I believe is a hype map that is based off of the real life Wanaka, New Zealand, or it is like just a map that they made that looks like it. I'm not really too sure, but I've heard pretty good things about it, so I wanted to point those out. Deranged Teddy has new versions of both of his mods. So if you use Unemployment Monitor or Sim Behavior Improvements, I believe you have to uninstall the previous versions of these mods and reinstall these new versions and uploads of these mods, because he is now part of Cities 2 modding, which I don't believe he was before. For those of you who don't know, Cities 2 Modding is a collective of modders all kind of working together to work on their mods. 89 Pleasures, the person who made two of my favorite mods, one of them being Extended Tooltip, the other being, where is it, Extended Hotkeys, which are two fantastic mods. And if you want to learn about them, please check out my modding video. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about new mods. So I just wanted to keep you guys up to date on Deranged Teddy's mods that you might need to re-download them under their new uploads. We also have a new free-range camera light mod. This will permit the camera to move outside the playable area and significantly increase the maximum zoomed out. So if you used any of the modded camera mods for City Skylines 1, this is going to be pretty similar to that. It just allows your camera to have a lot more control, which is always good. Now, that's everything on my Thunderstore right now, and I think that's everything I wanted to cover this week. There's a lot going on, and I have a Christmas party I need to get ready for. So I want to thank you guys for watching this week. I appreciate it. Remember, next week there will be a special surprise from the Colossal Order team that we will, they were teased in the word of the week, but there might not be much more from Colossal Order. So a lot of these might just be mod update videos. So if you guys are interested in those, please make sure you turn on subscription and turn on notifications, where the word of the week will be back starting January 17th, where my video would probably come out a week after that. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.